There was two different mentalities here. Toots was thinking of great business we're doing, more money to go to the racetrack with. Vince McMahon, I understood his plight. He wanted to be the most dominant force in the wrestling world by having the champion only.
Runs in the family, yes, yeah. Go ahead.
So anyway, after I said that, and Toots spoke up and he says, I was always against this thing. He says, and now what are you going to do? He says, now you have 4 days left. What are you going to give Sam Moshnick, and what are we going to keep for ourselves? Are we going to hurt ourselves just so that we have Bruno as the champion? And Vince McMahon said, no. So they had another meeting, and he said that this wasn't going to work. And that was the end of the story, and that's the true story. Later I'm hearing that what brought this thing, I think Meltzer or somebody said, that what brought this thing to an end was that Lou Thesz didn't believe that I should have been the guy that he wanted, Dick Hutton. Dick Hutton, God rest, so he died recently, was a great wrestler, was in the Olympics, but he was never what you called a great, great attraction in the professional world. I don't know if you knew that or not. He just wasn't. And also the other claim was that Lou Thesz wanted $100,000 up front to do this. These were all lies. None of it was true. What Thesz, I found out later, wanted was that after, if I became champion, that he wanted to have a chance to have a return match with me all over the country, so that this last year he would have headlined with me every major club all over the country and leave the business with one heck of a year. But stories have come out not that. I don't know if Thesz ever said anything. I honestly don't know. But they say he wanted $100,000 up front because he didn't believe I was the man for that role. He wanted Dick Hutton. He wouldn't go for anybody else. All these stories, but I can tell you that they're lies because I got to the bottom of it all. Thesz never had any problem if he came up with a different story on his own later, but that's the true story. It was crushed by me because I took 4 days out of them, you know what I mean? And they couldn't get along with what they supposedly both needed days-wise to accommodate both the NWA and the WWF. And that's the story with this.
Okay, so we'll fast forward to the end of the second title reign at this point. Okay. You lose the belt to superstar Billy Graham in Baltimore, Maryland. Yes. Everyone's shocked at that thing. Why did it end? Did you just say, that's it, I had enough?
Well, remember, I had broken my neck. And when I came back, I had let McMahon know. I said, remember, Vince, we had agreed on 1 year. 1 went to 2, 2 went to 3, and now we're going to 4. And I said, enough already. I said, so move quick, because I will bow out. And so they had to move quick, and they came up with the Graham thing, but only, of course, for a temporary time, because they didn't believe that any villain could hold the title long in New York and make it. So they kept him for 9 months. In the meantime, they were grooming Bob Backlund, who came in and took it from Graham.
Now, you mentioned earlier that at one of the airport meetings with McMahon Sr. came a guy named Vince Jr.
Yes, they came together
tell us about Vince Jr. when you first met him. Did he appear to be the aggressive guy that he became?
Well, keep in mind now, I had met Vince prior because he was in the business and I was doing color commentating with him.
Right. No, what I'm asking you is that when you first started to meet him, he was with Vince at that meeting, and you'd known him before that, but when you first met Vince, did you feel any type of, you know, this guy's really coming on too strong?
You mean at that particular meeting?
No, earlier than that, when you first met him.
No, I didn't know him too well, but there was something about Vince Jr. that, the talk was this. They said, can you imagine if something happens to the old man and this guy takes over? Really? That's what was the talk amongst the guys, you know. And that's how everybody thought. But when I met that particular meeting downtown the airport, it was mostly me and the father that conversed most. Him, not much.
So when did Junior fully come into the picture in terms of dealing with you?
Well, when Rocca passed away, do you remember? Argentino Rocca. I came in, I noticed something about McMahon. He probably would never admit it.
Senior or junior now?
Junior. But he was doing the commentating with Rocca. And if you remember that, if you remember real good, he didn't seem to call, at least in my opinion, he didn't call the moves. Like he wouldn't say like, oh, he bailed him across the ring. Oh, he just flipped him across the ring. Or he wouldn't say a scoop slam. Oh, he just picked him up and slammed him. So I never said anything to him, but but when I told McMahon that I could play a raucous role and, you know, become a color commentator and at the same time maintain my schedule in wrestling, you know, like I was
still
doing
be visible.
Yeah. And so then I would purposely say to Vince, hey, Vince, man, that was a terrific drop toe hold that he so just used. Boy, wasn't that a terrific hip toss from the ropes? Or wasn't that a great suplex? And then he started picking. Now, he would never admit to this, but he started, and I must say, he did become, you know, very good and whatever. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. But I did that with him for a couple of years, you know, commentating. And then when the Zbyszko incident, and then after that, it was over, you know. It was all done and over with. And then I came back in '84, of course, as a color commentator. He called me up, Vince McMahon. I didn't call him. He called me to come back. Color commentate. His dad had passed on. He said, you know, how much he'd appreciate it because I'd been on set, because I'd been with the organization for so many years. Little did I know at the time that the changes that I was about to see were that drastic. And that, of course, you know the rest of the story, as I've told over and again. I became very turned off. I didn't like at all what I was seeing. And that just made a very bad feelings as far as I was concerned to be part of the business. I don't want to be anywhere near it. I figured something.
What was it that you were seeing at that particular point? I mean, this was pretty early on.
Well, actually, if we can go back, you know, because I know we're almost coming full circle now.
Go ahead.
You mentioned very briefly the Zbyszko incident, and that was it. If we were here doing a shoot interview with Larry Zbyszko, and I've read, you know, some of what Larry Zbyszko was writing about his career, he credits training with Bruno. Can you talk about, you know, you being a mentor to Larry Zbyszko in the early days? Because you just mentioned the Zbyszko incident. You versus Larry Zbyszko was a big deal. You just went the incident. It was more that made a lot of money for a lot of people. Could we talk a little more about you and Larry Zbyszko?
It was a match at Shea Stadium. I mean.
Remember that?
Sure.
I want to hear him tell it, Bill.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What do you want to hear specifically about the matches, the success of the matches, or what do you?
Well, I mean, quickly, I mean, what role you played in Larry Zbyszko's career early on, and then you said the Zbyszko incident, and you know, and towards the end of the career.